burnout. This is kind of a bummer of a topic to talk about, but I felt that it was something really important for me to address because the purpose of my channel is really to help out especially new teachers who are just getting into the profession, and it's so hard. It's such a hard thing to do, especially at the beginning, and I kind of understand why so many people quit in their first 5 years. I was just looking up a few statistics, and the statistics say that about half of all teachers quit within the first 5 years. Now, that may be a perfectly valid choice, and there may be some people who just, aren't really cut out for teaching. They're not happy teaching and they want to do something else, and that's okay. You don't have to stick with the very first job that you try. Maybe there's something else better for you. But I just wanted to give you a few things to consider if you have reached, the end of one of those years where you're like, I don't know if I can go back in September or August, like August 5th or something. Half of us are going back super early these days, but if you're like, I don't know if I can do this again, here are just a few things to consider. Now, I should say that the reason I even started thinking about this is that I am at the end of my 4th year, and I'm kind of in that magic place where people start to consider quitting. And I've had a rough year. This has been my worst year of teaching so far. It was very frustrating and very stressful, and there were a couple days this year where I was just like, I don't know if I can do this. So I'm not quitting. That thought just kind of crossed my mind for a fleeting second, but I did want to just reflect on it a little bit more. So I've got 10 things right here to remember when you're thinking about, maybe I'm gonna be done with this. Okay, so the first thing, recognize why you are feeling burnt out. And maybe it's bigger than school. Maybe you're kind of feeling burnt out on life because when you first started teaching, you may not have had quite as many responsibilities outside of school. Maybe you just got out of college and you had a little bit more free time, you had more energy. Maybe since then you have, just taken on more responsibilities outside of school. Maybe you bought a house, maybe you got married, maybe you're about to have a baby like me, or something else like that. Maybe there are just bigger stressors in your life now, and you can't be quite as fun of a teacher as you were your first year. Maybe you can't do as many extracurricular activity things and always have prizes on hand and stuff like that. I'm kind of noticing that about myself, that I am a little bit different of a teacher than I was my first year because I'm a different person than I was my first year. Things have gotten a little bit more serious in my life, and that's going to continue to happen, and that's going to affect you in whatever other job you went into as well. So just kind of consider, is it teaching, or is it your life in general that is stressing you out? And are you okay with kind of adjusting your teaching style and adjusting just who you are as a teacher based on who you are becoming as a person? I think I'm becoming more of a mom figure than like an older sister figure. And that sort of sucks, because I used to really like that about who I was as a teacher, that, I could give a lot of advice and, just kind of be like that counselor and not friend to my students, but more like a big sister or an aunt or something. But now, I'm more like a mom. I act more like a mom, and it's because I am becoming a mom. So, my role has changed, and that's just how it's going to be. Someday, I'm going to be more of a grandma to my students. That's crazy to consider, but someday, unless, I don't know, maybe I'll retire before then, hopefully, but The second thing I would say is to quit something to save your sanity. I was talking to another teacher at my school who's been teaching about the same length of time as I have, and both of us do a lot for our students. We do a lot after school. We are there for many, many hours. We do way more things than the typical teacher does, I think. And both of us were just starting to feel very, very tired, very burnt out. We're like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. And I was like, you know what? I think we need to quit some things. Like next year we should just say no. Like Megan Trainor, no. My name is no. My number is no. Anyway, I was just telling her like we can't always do everything because it's gonna make you hate your job. Like that's kind of the sad truth about it. I'm not gonna do as much next year because I don't want to always be stressed. Like teaching doesn't always have to be that way. Like there are teachers who just teach one thing and they don't do any extracurricular stuff and they leave and they are probably really happy. I'm like, I want to be one of those teachers. Well, I don't know. I'm sure I'll never just be, you know, the type to walk out right at 3, but you can quit a few things. You don't have to do everything. And just because you quit something for a year doesn't mean you can't go back to it, but you might need to save yourself a little bit and kind of like rebuild your energy, like restock your supply before you can continue giving and giving and giving. Here's another big thing. Give with no expectations. I was talking to a couple of my teacher friends the other day, and one thing that I think we all had gotten frustrated with was the fact that we give a lot as teachers and then, you know, kids are not always appreciative of it. They're not always grateful. So, you know, I have orchestrated all these things for the drama kids this year, and I put on a play during my spring break while I was 7 months pregnant, while I was trying to finish up my master's thesis, and I orchestrated all these field trips for them. And then some of them, you know, are still disrespectful and don't seem to understand my sacrifice because that's not, you know, that's not really what they're supposed to do. If they have that maturity, that's super nice. Those are the best kids to work with, but they may not recognize your sacrifice at all, and they may not appreciate it, and you have to be okay with that. You can only give as much as you can give, and this is true with any kind of giving. Like, you just need to give it and be fine with that, and if people appreciate it, that feels great, and if not, you gave what you could. One of my friends, she teaches an AP class, and so in order to prepare her students, she came in every Saturday for like 2 months and brought them bagels and did extra study sessions, you know, of course not getting paid for any of that. And then some of her students like didn't finish the test, or they're like, oh yeah, I just got like halfway through and then I just guessed, like I didn't know any of that stuff. And she's like, are you serious? Like, I did all this for you and then you just threw the test back in my face. But you just have to know that that might happen. If you can't give up your Saturdays, don't give up your Saturdays. If you can't give up your spring break, don't give up your spring break. Don't do it if you can't do it, and don't do it if you can't do it without being appreciated. And you know, sometimes kids don't really appreciate things till like later on down the road anyway. So if you're not going to get immediate gratification out of it, that has to be okay with you. Just know that's the nature of teaching. Okay, the next thing is consider a new school. There are schools that are really poorly run and have really bad administrators and are just not good schools. This I also, you know, start to recognize the more that I talk to other teachers. So after a couple of years in the same school, you may just realize that like things aren't going to change. This is not really a place where I fit in well. This is not a place where I can do my best work. Maybe your administrators are super critical of teachers, but then like have no control over any of the kids, and like their behavior management is super weak, but then they, you know, take that out on teachers and try and control them. I've seen schools where that happens, and I would not want to work in that environment. There are other teaching jobs out there at the moment. It seems like there are more jobs available than there have been in the past. So if you're really unhappy, consider just moving to another school or another district or something like that, because that may be what you need to do. The next thing is to just search for some kind of inspiration. Maybe just like read a book about teaching that is inspiring, or like watch a movie. I love, oh, my favorite movie forever was Lean on Me with Morgan Freeman. I like want to be Morgan Freeman and like kick all the drug dealers out and lock the doors and stuff. Like, I love him. Or Stand and Deliver. I loved that one. Bad Teacher actually is like one of my favorite movies ever. Maybe, you know, just like spend a Saturday watching a couple, maybe not Bad Teacher, but watching a couple like teacher movies or reading books. Or, I mean, seems to me like you're probably doing that already. Like if you're watching YouTube videos about teaching, or maybe just even find like a letter from a student that they had written you a couple years ago, and you know, you were like, oh, I'll save this, and like pull those things out, read them again, just, you know, search for some inspiration around you, and maybe that will just be enough to be like, okay, yeah, there's, you know, there are things that I can do. Sometimes I even get excited just reading like teacher books about like a writing program or a reading program or something, and I'm like, ooh, I really want to try that. Like, oh, those ideas sound so good. I want to test that out on some students. This one is kind of the same. Like, just remember why you started and what you do enjoy about teaching. I recently, well, you know, this is nice for me that I have like YouTube, because I can go back and look at old videos and things that I've said, or like lessons that I've taught or advice that I've given or whatever, and it's kind of nice for me to have this little archive. And you know, I think I was watching like my goals video for the beginning of the year or something like that, and it's kind of like, oh yeah, see, I really, you know, I really do love this, and I really do want to keep doing it, and I had some good intentions and good ideas. I was trying to clear a bunch of pictures off my computer actually. So I was looking back at all these pictures from like my first year of teaching and when I first started teaching at the school that I'm at now, and I was just kind of like, oh, I remember that. Like, that was such a good year, and like, oh, that was such a fun field trip, or such a fun play. So like, look back at some of your memory things, and maybe those will just bring back the reasons for why you teach. Okay, this next one I think is a big one that I just realized yesterday, actually. Someone on Facebook had posted one of those personality tests, like the Myers-Briggs or whatever. I don't know if this one was Myers-Briggs, but it's like 16 personalities. So if you just like Google 16personalities.com, I think that's where the test was. So I was just in the car, my husband and I were driving somewhere far, and so I was just doing it on my phone, and it was really interesting to see like kind of the breakdown of my personality. And then, oh, let me see what it was. ESTJ, which I actually don't even know what that stands for, but I'm executive. And so they had little sections about how like that personality type functions in relationships and friendships and work and parenting. It was actually really good to read the parenting section and just kind of see what I'm likely to be like as a parent, and the things that will be my strengths and the things that will be my weaknesses. And so I can't even remember like what section this was in, because, you know, there wasn't something for like teaching, but it was explaining that people with my personality type we're very driven, very organized, we really value hard work and loyalty, and we're almost like personally offended by laziness and cheating. And that's very true about me. Like, I work so hard in my life. Like, I work very hard at teaching. I work very hard in my own school, in my own master's. And then when my students can't bother to like turn in a one-page worksheet or like put their name on it, I do kind of feel like offended, like how could you be this way? And even just in recognizing that, I was like less frustrated, like, oh, okay, yeah, so that's just kind of something about my personality more than like a fact of life. So anyway, it was just interesting because it helped me to see myself as, you know, one of many people in the world that kind of have this worldview and have this personality and these specific strengths and weaknesses. And I have a lot of strengths for teaching. There are a lot of things about my personality that make me a good teacher. But then there are some weaknesses that could like be my Achilles heel, like stuff that I have to just let go. because otherwise that's going to make me too frustrated. But now that I recognize that, it's easier to manage. I would be interested to hear, actually, like fellow teachers, what your personality type is and how you feel like that makes you a strong teacher in some ways, and then like what weaknesses you have to address. Okay, this kind of goes along with that one. Pick your battles. And so, you know, as I'm realizing that there are certain things where I'm like, no, this needs to happen, like this is fair. I'm very obsessed with like justice, like this needs to happen because this is right. Sometimes just let things go though, you know. Like I had some students this year who did not show up to their final, which was a performance like for our choir drama class thing. And the way that was set in the computer, and they've known all year, is that like that would make you fail if you don't come, and they just didn't bother to show up. So, you know, they had an F. And then of course parents are going to complain about that, and I was kind of like, well, that was the deal, and they've known for a really long time, and I'm not going to do extra work to set up like a new assignment for them. But eventually I just had to be like, this isn't worth fighting though. This is an elective class. The students were 8th graders. They're going to be at the high school in like a few days. Like, who cares? This really doesn't affect my life. Like, at one point I was just like, how about I just give them an A+? Does that work for you? Does that work for everybody? Some things, just be like, okay, let it go. It's not worth fighting. Okay, I've got number 9 here. Have a community to complain to / like share your victories with. And that's not always the teachers at your school. I still have friends, you know, that work at different schools that we just kind of have like a little group chat, and we'll just like, I don't know, like every so often just like snap a picture of like a student's work and just like the eye roll emoji and be like, really? So, you know, we can just kind of like let off a little bit of steam amongst each other, like nothing that we would make public or anything like that, or even say to the kid or their parents, but just some things where it's like, are you serious? Is this real life? This is really my day today, you know? So that's kind of fun. Even like on Instagram, it's kind of nice to have like other teacher friends, or like YouTube, or just social media in general. It doesn't even necessarily have to be people that you know in real life, but just there's quite a few little Instagram accounts that are like, one is like Teacher Troubles or something like that, where it's just like funny memes and stuff about, you know, just the annoying side of teaching that's kind of funny, but could get you frustrated. But then like when you see like, oh yeah, this has 780 likes, like other people are feeling this way too. I think that's important to have. And then the very last thing, number 10, I had called my dad on the day that I had like a really rough day, the worst day of this school year. He's an administrator, and he taught for a long time too. So both my parents are teachers actually. So sometimes I just call them and I'm like, oh, what should I do in this situation? And my dad was just reminding me that like managing other people's behavior is one of the hardest things in the world to do. You know, like you could be an accountant or something where you manage numbers and it's gonna pretty much come out, you know, in a very predictable way, but it's really unpredictable to try and manage other people's behavior and understand every situation behind their actions, and, you know, foresee how your words are going to affect them. And also you need to get results from them too. Like you need to see growth in your students, and you need to actually teach them. And so you just have to like cut yourself a little bit of slack, because that's one of the hardest things there is to do ever. But someone does have to do it. We have to raise these kids. I mean, see, this is my like personality test coming out again, but it's so important to me to raise kids well. And I know that not all of them have good parents that raise them well and teach them good values and good morals. And I'm not going to reject that part of my personality. I think that's an important thing that I bring to my classroom, that I do try to teach kids respect and, you know, to be aware of other people and be aware of how their actions affect other people, and teach them that they're part of a community. This is not just about you. You are not the only person in this classroom. You're not the only person at this school. You can't just do whatever you want. You know, but your actions could potentially affect people in a really positive way. Let's try and find ways to do those things, you know. So that's a big part of my teaching. And, you know, I take on the challenge of trying to manage other people's behavior, because if no one ever teaches you how to behave correctly, how are you ever going to do it? So anyway, I hope that this has given you a few things to think about if you are in that position where you're like, do I want summer forever? Or to go into just a completely different field at this point. I can totally see how, you come into that feeling at the end of a year. But just consider some of these things and let me know if any of that was useful to you or helpful to you. And then maybe in the comments below, if you are struggling with some of these things, other people can comment and kind of encourage you too. So let's try and encourage each other to stay in teaching. I think it's a really important, really rewarding, really great job, but God, it is hard. It is freaking hard. It is so hard. But we can do it because we're awesome. So anyway, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you know anybody going through these feelings, feel free to please share it with them. I have 6 school days left, so I am almost there, trying to make it through, even though I have a baby due in less than that, but we're gonna see if we can make it all the way through. So if I can do it, you can do it. Let's get through this school year and then get ready for the next one. All right, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye.